"You'll regret this," Barbara screamed when my wife refused to pay the ridiculous $90 HOA fine. But here's the twist. When the cops arrived, they stepped back from her instead. Because my wife is not who you think she is. The ending will make Barbara regret ever calling the cops. Can you guess who she really is? Don't miss out. You won't believe what happens next. 3 months ago, Amy and I moved into 421 Willow Court. Beautiful house, needed work, but the price was too good to pass up. The seller seemed desperate to leave, practically throwing the keys at us during closing. "Fresh start," Amy had said, squeezing my hand as we signed the papers. She'd just gotten promoted to some government position she was weirdly vague about. New job, new neighborhood. What could go wrong? Famous last words, right? The first week was perfect. We unpacked, met a few neighbors, and started settling in. Then Barbara Garcia introduced herself. I was fixing the mailbox when she power walked over, clipboard in hand, mid-50s, highlighted bob, the kind of woman who definitely had live, laugh, love signs in every room. "Welcome to Maplewood." Her smile was all teeth, no warmth. "I'm Barbara, HOA president. I like to greet new homeowners personally." She said it like she was doing us a favor, but her eyes were already scanning our property like a predator. "Larry, nice to meet you," I said, trying to match her fake enthusiasm. Her eyes narrowed at our house. "This is a special house. The previous owners were, well, I hope you will take better care of it." That was weird. Something wrong with the previous owners? Her smile tightened. "Let's just say they didn't appreciate the importance of rules. Their negligence had consequences." She tapped her clipboard. "I have your welcome packet. 300 pages of HOA guidelines. I've highlighted the critical sections." That night, Amy flipped through the packet, eyebrows climbing. "Listen to this. Vehicles must be parked facing east to ensure uniform appearance. Who makes these rules? Apparently Barbara." She seemed intense about the previous owners. Amy got quiet. What did she say exactly? Just that they didn't follow rules and faced consequences. No reason, but she was already pulling out her laptop. "I'm curious about this house's history." 2 hours later, she closed the computer, looking troubled. "The Andersons, family of 4. They lived here for 6 years until their daughter Emma had an accident." "What kind of accident?" "Severe allergic reaction. The ambulance couldn't get through because someone had parked across their driveway." "The delay?" She shook her head. "Emma survived but with permanent complications. They moved out 3 months later." "That's horrible. Who blocked the driveway?" "Report doesn't say. But Barbara filed 12 HOA violations against them in the 2 months after the accident. Grass height, trash can placement, unauthorized landscaping modifications to install a wheelchair ramp." I stared at her. She fined them for a wheelchair ramp. $800 plus daily penalties. Amy's expression was grim. "I think we know why this house was priced to sell." The next morning, I was measuring for new house numbers when Barbara appeared again. The woman had ninja-level stealth. "Morning, Larry. I see you're making improvements. You did submit the architectural modification form, right? For house numbers. Any external changes require approval, Section 43. She made a note. "I'll waive it this time since you're new, but next time could result in fines." "Barbara, can I ask you something about the previous owners?" Her face went cold. "What about them?" "Just wondering what happened. Seems like they left suddenly. They were difficult people. Constant violations. Never understood that rules exist for everyone's safety." Her knuckles whitened around the clipboard. That poor child's accident could have been prevented if everyone followed parking regulations. So, someone was parked illegally when illegally number. But facing the wrong direction. Yes, if they'd followed HOA guidelines, the ambulance would have had better access. She checked her watch. "I have rounds to finish. Remember, 72 hours to correct any violations I note today." After she left, I texted Amy. Barbara just blamed the Andersons' daughter's accident on someone parking the wrong way. Amy's response was immediate. "Keep her talking when she comes by. I'm looking into something." That evening, I found Amy surrounded by papers, deep in research mode. The Andersons tried to file a complaint against the HOA after the accident. It was dismissed. Want to guess who was on the review board? Barbara. Barbara as president, but also a councilman named Bradley. And get this, Barbara's been trying to buy this house for 2 years. The Andersons refused every offer. The implications hit me. She wanted to buy the house where a little girl almost died because of an HOA issue. Yeah. Amy's expression was dark. Larry, I think Barbara was more involved in that accident than she's letting on. As I watched Amy pull up more records, I realized my wife wasn't just casually curious. She was building a case, and Barbara Garcia had no idea what was coming. As neighbors returned home, I found Amy staring at her laptop screen, face pale. Larry, she said quietly, I just found the police report from the Anderson incident. You're not going to believe whose name is all over it. Over the next 2 weeks, Barbara escalated like she was following some twisted playbook. Daily courtesy visits to point out violations. Grass height, flower choices, the angle of our garden hose. I'm not kidding. She had a provision about proper hose storage angles. Amy started documenting everything. Photos, videos, recordings. She's building to something, she said, organizing files on her laptop. This isn't random harassment. Why don't we just file a complaint with who? She runs the HOA. And look at this. Amy showed me her research. 6 families have moved out in 3 years. All after extended conflicts with Barbara. All from this section of the street. Our section. The section where Emma Anderson had her accident. Every house with a view of what happened. Amy pulled up property records. Barbara's been trying to buy 421 Willow Court for 2 years. The Andersons refused to sell to her. That's when it clicked. She's trying to erase witnesses or control the narrative. Watch this. Amy played a video from a community meeting. Barbara is at the podium talking about safety regulations. She kept referencing the incident as a cautionary tale about following rules. She's rewritten history. I said made herself the hero instead of what? We don't know her actual role yet. Amy's expression was calculating, but I'm going to find out. That Thursday, things got interesting. I was working from home when the doorbell rang. Barbara, of course, but this time with backup. A man in an expensive suit stood beside her. Larry, this is Councilman Bradley. He's on the HOA advisory board. Bradley had the handshake of a used car salesman. Heard there have been some compliance issues. Barbara asked me to mediate. Compliance issues. We've lived here 3 weeks. 26 violations in 3 weeks, Barbara corrected. That's nearly 1 per day. You've documented 26 violations. I couldn't hide my disbelief. She produced a binder tabbed, color-coded photos of our trash cans from multiple angles, measurements of grass height, time-stamped pictures of Amy's car facing west instead of east. This is insane. Bradley's political smile never wavered. Barbara runs a tight ship, but it keeps property values up. I'm sure we can resolve this. The fine structure is quite reasonable. Fine structure. Barbara flipped to a laminated page. First violation, warning. Second, $30. Third, $60. Fourth through 10th, $90 each. You're at, she calculated with obvious pleasure, $1,140. I'm not paying $1,100 for imaginary violations. They're documented, Bradley said smoothly. Legal and binding according to the CCS. Of course, Barbara's willing to work out a payment plan. Or, Barbara added, eyes glinting. You could sell. I know you bought recently. The market's good. I could even connect you with buyers. There was. The real game. We're not selling. Barbara's smile turned predatory. Then I suggest you start following the rules. Bradley, I think we should discuss the special assessment. Special assessment, for road repairs, $2,000 per household due within 30 days. Bradley looked uncomfortable, but nodded. The board voted last night. Let me guess. The board that's just you, Bradley, and whoever else you control. Barbara's face darkened. Careful, Larry. Slander is actionable. After they left, I called Amy. Barbara just hit us with $1,100 in fines and a $2,000 special assessment. She brought a city councilman as muscle. Bradley, interesting. Did you get it on video? Every second. Don't pay anything yet. I'm coming home early. That evening, Amy reviewed the footage with intense focus. Bradley's nervous. See how he keeps glancing at Barbara? He's not leading. He's following. She paused the video. Look at his hand. Wedding ring, tan line, but no ring. Recent divorce. How is that relevant? Because desperate people make bad allies. And desperate people make mistakes. She pulled out her phone. I need to verify something. This might take a few days. Amy, what's your job exactly? This feels like more than government administrative work. She kissed my forehead. Trust me, let Barbara think she's winning. When she gets overconfident, that's when we move. That night, I woke to find Amy's side of the bed empty. Through the window, I saw her in the driveway talking on her phone at 3 a.m. Yes, I understand the risks, she was saying. But if Barbara Garcia finds out who I really am before Tuesday, she paused, listening. No, she can't know. Not until she calls the police herself. Tuesday morning arrived with storm clouds gathering. Amy had taken a half-day off work, saying she had paperwork to handle. She was organizing files in the garage when Barbara's Prius pulled up. She's here, I called out. Perfect timing. Amy emerged, wearing jeans and an old Police Academy t-shirt. Stay inside, but keep your phone recording. Why would I need to? Trust me. I positioned myself at the living room window as Barbara marched up our driveway, waving a yellow paper like a battle flag. Helen from across the street was watering her roses, clearly watching. Other neighbors were suddenly very interested in checking their mail. Barbara's voice carried clearly. Amy Scott. I need payment immediately. Good morning to you too, Barbara, Amy said calmly. Don't play games. $90 right now. Barbara thrust the fine notice at Amy. Grass height, improper mailbox color, directional parking. It's all documented. I'm not paying this. Excuse me. Barbara's voice went up an octave. I said, no, I'm not paying fraudulent fines from an illegal HOA. Barbara's face went purple. How dare you? These fines are legally binding. No, they're not. Your HOA charter expired 2 years ago. You have no legal authority. That's a lie. Bradley said Bradley says what you pay him to say. I'm not paying $90 or 90. Period. Barbara pulled out her phone with shaking hands. Then you leave me no choice. I'm calling the police. Please do. Barbara stabbed at her phone. 911. Yes, this is Barbara Garcia, HOA president at Maplewood Estates. I need officers immediately at 421 Willow Court. A resident is refusing to pay the required HOA fines and is threatening. I haven't threatened you, Barbara, Amy said loudly enough for the dispatcher to hear. She's refusing lawful orders. Send someone now. Barbara hung up triumphantly. You'll pay the $90 plus legal fees when they arrest you. Amy just leaned against our car. Barbara, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. More neighbors had appeared. Is that a threat? Barbara shrieked. It's a fact. 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. Officer Thompson emerged, looking tired. Officers, Barbara rushed forward. This woman is refusing to pay $90 in legally binding HOA fines. Thompson sighed. Ma'am, that's a civil matter. We don't arrest people for HOA disputes. But she's being hostile. She threatened me. I told her she was making a mistake calling you, Amy said evenly. Is that a threat? Thompson looked between them. Ladies, can we resolve this without? I want her arrested. Barbara stamped her foot. She owes $90. For what exactly? Thompson pulled out his notepad. Grass height, wrong mailbox color, parking in the wrong direction. Barbara waved her papers. It's all documented. Thompson's expression shifted. You called 911 over grass height. It's about maintaining standards. If you won't do your job, I'll call your supervisor. Amy stepped forward. Officer Thompson, I need to show you something. She pulled out her wallet slowly and flipped it open. Thompson's eyes widened. Chief Scott. The crowd gasped. Barbara staggered backward. You're the new chief of police. 6 weeks on the job. Amy's voice carried across the yard. And Barbara, you just filed a false police report. What? I reported a real crime. You reported a civil dispute as an emergency claiming I threatened you. The 911 recording will show I never threatened you. That's a misdemeanor. Barbara's legs wobbled. This is entrapment. No, Barbara. This is the consequence. Amy turned to Thompson. I need you to witness something. Mrs. Garcia, are you still insisting I pay this $90 fine? You owe it. For the record, this HOA charter expired 2 years ago. These fines are fraudulent. Mrs. Garcia, you're operating an illegal enterprise. That's not true. Bradley verified. Councilman Bradley, who have you been paying $20,000 to look the other way? Amy pulled out a document. I have the bank records. Barbara went white. The crowd gasped. I also have evidence you've been targeting specific houses. Only those with views of where Emma Anderson nearly died 3 years ago. Care to explain why? I don't know what you're talking about. Helen stepped forward. Barbara, we all know you were there that day. You told us it was a delivery truck blocking the driveway. It was a delivery truck. Then why have you spent 3 years driving out every witness? Amy asked. The Williams family, the Johnsons, all had clear views. All received massive fines until they moved. Barbara was shaking now. This is harassment. I want a lawyer. Good idea. Because you're going to need one. Amy nodded to Thompson. For now, Mrs. Garcia is free to go. But Barbara, don't leave town and don't access any HOA computers or bank accounts. Consider yourself under investigation. You can't do this. I just did. Thompson, please document that Mrs. Garcia called 911 for a civil matter and filed a false report claiming threats that didn't occur. Barbara stumbled toward her car, then turned back. This isn't over. I have powerful friends. You'll be sorry. Barbara, Amy called out. That sounded like an actual threat. Thompson, did you hear that? I did, Chief. Barbara fled to her car and peeled out. The crowd slowly dispersed, everyone talking at once. Helen approached us. Is it true about the charter? Every word. Meeting tomorrow night. Spread the word. As neighbors returned home, I finally went outside. Police chief. Amy grinned. Surprise. Sorry, I couldn't tell you sooner. Wanted to see how far Barbara would push things. So, what happens now? Barbara Garcia panics. And panicked people make terrible decisions. Amy's phone buzzed. She read the text and her expression darkened. Speaking of terrible decisions, Barbara just accessed something she shouldn't have, something that could destroy a lot more than just my reputation. What would you do if you found out your HOA president was secretly the police chief's main target? I'm watching my wife play chess while Barbara thinks it's checkers. Drop a comment. Have you ever witnessed someone walk right into their own trap? Wednesday morning came with chaos. Barbara hadn't slept. I knew because she'd been posting on the neighborhood social media page all night. Corruption in our police department. New chief targeting innocent citizens. Who is Amy Scott really? By morning, bring him in for questioning. That afternoon, Barbara organized a concerned citizens meeting at the community center. The flyer promised shocking revelations about our new police chief. You're not going, I said when Amy put on her uniform. Of course I am. This is exactly what I've been waiting for. The community center was packed. Barbara had set up a projector and copies of her website on every chair. Thank you all for coming, Barbara began. I know many of you are confused about yesterday's events. I'm here to tell you the truth. She clicked through slides, Amy's photo, headlines from Denver, and selectively edited reports. This woman came to our town under false pretenses. She targeted me because I dared to maintain standards. Ask yourselves, why would a Denver cop with this kind of history come to Maplewood? To investigate corruption, Amy said from the back of the room. Every head turned. Amy walked down the aisle in full uniform. Please continue your presentation, Mrs. Garcia. You're doing my job for me. Barbara's hands shook. You can't be here. This is a private meeting in a public building using illegally obtained documents. Please go on. These aren't illegal. They're public record. Personnel files are not public record. How did you get them, Barbara? That's none of your business. Actually, it is because accessing law enforcement databases without authorization is a federal crime. So is identity theft. which you committed when you used my social security number to run background checks. Amy pulled out her phone. Then you won't mind if I play this recording. Bradley's voice filled the room. Barbara paid me $5,000 to get the files. Said she needed leverage. I used my admin access from the Public Safety Committee. I'm sorry. I know it was wrong. Barbara dropped the clicker. That's entrapment. No, that's confession. Amy stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Barbara Garcia has committed multiple federal crimes in her attempt to discredit me. But that's not the worst part. She clicked Barbara's projector to a new slide. Financial records. This is Barbara's HOA account. $480,000 collected in 2 years. Want to know where it went? The crowd leaned forward. Payments to her recommended buyers, the ones who purchased homes from families she drove out. Payments to contractors who never did work. Payments to herself. $60,000 in management fees for an HOA that doesn't legally exist. Those are private records. Barbara screamed. Actually, they're evidence seized under warrant this morning while you were busy making websites. Amy turned to the crowd. Every family Barbara targeted had one thing in common. They witnessed her block the Anderson driveway during Emma's medical emergency. Stop it. Barbara was backing toward the exit. 14 minutes. That's how long Barbara spent writing a citation for a garden hose while Emma Anderson fought to breathe. I said stop. The truth hurts, doesn't it, Barbara? Barbara grabbed the microphone. I was there, but it wasn't my fault. If the Andersons had followed the rules, a child almost died because they were bad neighbors. Garden hoses everywhere, toys on the lawn. They deserved, she stopped, realizing what she'd said. The room was silent. They deserved what, Barbara? Amy asked quietly. Barbara ran for the exit, but found Officer Thompson waiting. Going somewhere, Mrs. Garcia. This is false arrest. I'll sue Barbara Garcia. You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, accessing law enforcement databases, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit racketeering. As Thompson cuffed her, Barbara screamed at the crowd, "You'll regret this. Without me, property values will plummet. The neighborhood will become chaos. You need me." No, Barbara, Helen stood up. We needed neighbors. You gave us fear. They led Barbara out as she continued screaming. Now, Amy addressed the crowd. Let's talk about getting your money back. As the meeting ended, Amy's phone rang. She listened, her face going white. What do you mean she had a dead man switch? She looked at me. Larry, check your email. Check it right now. My phone was already buzzing with notifications. Oh God. Amy whispered. She's not just taking down the neighborhood. She's taking down half the city government with her. Thursday morning, 3 a.m. My phone buzzed with notifications like angry wasps trapped in a jar. Then Amy's phone joined the chorus. Then both went into overdrive, a symphony of digital panic that dragged us from sleep into a nightmare. I grabbed my phone, squinting at the screen through blurry eyes. Dozens of emails from Barbara's HOA president account, all sent within the last hour. The subject lines alone made my blood run cold. What your neighbors don't want you to know. The truth about Maplewood Estates, corruption and scandal, full documentation attached. Amy was already scrolling through her phone, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. She made bail, Amy said grimly, her voice cutting through the electronic chaos. How? I couldn't believe anyone would post bail for Barbara after yesterday's performance. Her sister in California, $500,000 cash, probably liquidated her retirement. Amy was screenshotting everything with methodical precision, and now she's fighting dirty. This is her nuclear option. The emails were a massive data dump of everyone's secrets laid bare with surgical precision. Helen Morrison, husband's affair with secretary, 2019. Photos attached. David, bankruptcy filing hidden from employer, full documentation included. Jennifer Williams, son in rehab for opioid addiction. Medical records enclosed. Tom Bradley, embezzled $90,000 from city funds. Bank records provided. Our entire neighborhood's private information gathered through years of illegal surveillance weaponized in one desperate act of mutually assured destruction. She's been spying on everyone, I said, feeling sick as I scrolled through email after email and documenting it all. Amy was typing rapidly on her laptop. This is actually perfect. Perfect. She's destroying lives. I watched as more emails flooded in, each one a grenade thrown into someone's carefully constructed life. She's providing evidence. Every email she sends is another federal charge. Wire fraud, cyber harassment, blackmail. Amy picked up her phone. Thompson. Yeah, I know about the emails. Is the cybercrime unit ready? She's using her home IP. No VPN. She's not even trying to hide. My phone rang. Helen sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Larry, she posted about Robert's affair. It was 5 years ago. We worked through it, but now everyone knows. The grandchildren will see this. Our friends, everyone. More calls came in rapid succession. Neighbors panicking about exposed secrets. Marriages imploding in real time. People threatening to move immediately to flee the humiliation Barbara had unleashed. I felt helpless watching our community tear itself apart. Amy, you have to stop this. I am by letting her finish. She showed me her laptop screen. The FBI gave us monitoring software. Every email Barbara sends is being tracked, archived, and traced. She's building our case for us. She's documenting her own crimes in real time. By 7 a.m., the damage was staggering. The neighborhood social media page had exploded with accusations, denials, and recriminations. News vans were already arriving, drawn by the scent of scandal. HOA president's revenge porn scandal was trending locally, and national outlets were starting to pick up the story. Barbara hadn't just burned bridges, she'd napalmed the entire neighborhood. Then Barbara went live on social media because apparently she hadn't done enough damage through email. She looked haggard, manic, still wearing yesterday's power suit that now looked like she'd slept in it. Her makeup was smeared, her hair wild, her eyes glittering with the kind of desperate energy that precedes a complete breakdown. "Good morning, Maplewood," she said with false cheer that fooled no one. "Did you enjoy learning the truth about your neighbors? There's more coming. So much more." Comments flooded in, mostly outrage, but Barbara powered through like a captain going down with her ship. "Amy Scott thinks she's so clever. Let me tell you about our perfect police chief." She held up printed pages, waving them at the camera. Denver, 2019. Officer Tom Rodriguez, dead by suicide after Amy Scott destroyed his career. She's a killer, a career destroyer, and you let her into our community. "Turn it off," I told Amy, unable to watch Barbara's final descent into madness. "No, let her talk. She's confessing to federal crimes on live stream." Amy's expression was cold, professional. "Every word is evidence." Barbara continued ranting, her voice getting more shrill with each accusation. "I have everything, every document, every secret. I protected this neighborhood from people like her, from chaos, from someone appeared in Barbara's background. Helen." Somehow, the elderly woman had walked right into Barbara's house during the live stream. The comments went wild as viewers realized what was happening. "Barbara Garcia," Helen said calmly, her voice cutting through Barbara's rant. "You made me dig up my husband's ashes because the memorial roses were the wrong variety. You stood there with your clipboard while I sobbed, digging up the man I loved for 50 years. You're evil." Barbara spun around, nearly dropping her phone. "Get out of my house. This is trespassing. No, these people deserve to know what kind of monster you are." Helen faced the camera with dignity despite her tear-stained cheeks. "She fined me $800 while I was grieving. Made me remove Robert's memorial garden. Said it violated Code 47B. It did violate," Barbara started, but Helen cut her off. "There is no Code 47B, Helen shouted with 50 years of suppressed rage. "You made it up. Just like you made up half the violations." More people appeared in Barbara's house. Other neighbors walking in uninvited through the door Helen had left open. It was surreal watching Barbara's victims confront her on her own live stream. "You fined us for our daughter's birthday party, said the balloons were the wrong shade of pink. Made us repaint our house 4 times. 4 times different shades of beige. Charged us $300 for parking our own car in our own driveway." Barbara was backing away from the growing crowd in her living room, her phone shaking as she tried to maintain the live stream. "This is trespassing. I'll call the police." "Please do," Amy said. She'd apparently arrived at Barbara's house, appearing in frame with perfect timing. "I'd love to document this gathering of victims confronting their abuser." The live stream showed Barbara's complete breakdown. Surrounded by the people she'd terrorized, finally facing the consequences of years of petty tyranny. Her carefully constructed self-image crumbled in real time, broadcast to thousands of viewers. "You don't understand," Barbara screamed, tears streaming down her face. "Without rules, without structure, this neighborhood will collapse." "Property values." "Shut up about property values," someone yelled from off-camera. "You let a child almost die for property values." "I was protecting," Barbara tried to defend herself, but the crowd wasn't having it. "You were protecting yourself," Amy said clearly, her voice cutting through the chaos. "From the guilt of what you did to Emma Anderson. Every family you drove out was a witness. Every fine was silence money. Every rule you invented was another brick in the wall you built around your guilt." Barbara looked directly at the camera, and for a moment the mask completely fell away. "Fine. You want the truth? I blocked their driveway. I heard them screaming, but I had already started writing the citation. You can't just stop mid-cite. There are procedures. There are rules." The admission hung in the air like a physical thing. Even the live stream comments went quiet. "You let a child almost die," Helen said slowly, each word dripping with disgust. "Because you didn't want to stop writing mid-cite. The rules. The rules matter." Barbara's voice had become small, pathetic. "Barbara Garcia," Amy announced. "You're under arrest again. This time for cyber-terrorism, wire fraud, and violating bail conditions." "I'm in my own home," Barbara protested weakly. "Broadcasting crimes, harassing victims, accessing HOA computers you were ordered not to touch." Amy nodded to Thompson, who had appeared with backup. "Take her in." And this time, no bail. As Thompson cuffed Barbara for the second time in 48 hours, she looked at the camera one last time. Her eyes were wild, desperate, but also strangely clear. "Check your property values in 6 months. You'll beg me to come back. You'll see chaos. It'll be chaos without me." The live stream cut off, but not before capturing the entire neighborhood, watching Barbara Garcia finally face justice. The view count was over 10,000 and climbing. Barbara had wanted to destroy her neighbors, but instead she destroyed herself in the most public way possible. My phone buzzed. A text from Amy. "Federal prosecutors taking over." She just guaranteed herself 20 years minimum. I looked at the neighbors slowly leaving Barbara's house, hurt by the exposed secrets, angry about the surveillance, but somehow united. United in their relief that Barbara's reign of terror was finally over. Maybe chaos was exactly what we needed. At least chaos was honest. As Barbara was led away in cuffs for the second time, Helen grabbed my arm. "Larry, there's something you need to know." "Something about Amy." She glanced around nervously. Barbara wasn't wrong about Denver, but she only had half the story. The other half. Helen pulled out an old newspaper clipping from her purse. "Your wife isn't just a police chief. She's been hunting people like Barbara for years. And there's a reason the FBI is really here. Just found out my wife's been running a federal sting operation and I'm still processing it all. But that phone call that changed everything I thought I knew. Have you ever discovered your spouse was living a completely different life? Comment below because I need to know I'm not alone in this." Friday morning arrived with a kind of dramatic flair usually reserved for action movies. I woke to the sound of helicopters. Not the traffic choppers that occasionally buzzed overhead, but black federal helicopters circling our neighborhood like mechanical vultures. The windows vibrated with their rhythm, and through the curtains, I could see spotlights cutting through the dawn gloom. I reached for her, but her side of the bed was cold. She'd been gone for hours. I stumbled to the window and felt my jaw drop. Black SUVs everywhere, positioned at strategic points throughout the neighborhood. Agents in FBI windbreakers moved with military precision. Our quiet suburban street looked like a scene from a federal raid documentary. My phone buzzed. Text from Amy. "Stay inside. Watch the news." I flipped on Channel 9 and there it was. Breaking news banners screaming massive FBI raid. Corruption probe rocks Maplewood. The reporter stood in front of Barbara's house as agents carried out box after box of evidence. Federal authorities are executing search warrants at multiple locations in what sources describe as a widespread corruption investigation. The raids appear connected to yesterday's dramatic arrest of HOA President Barbara Garcia. Another text from Amy. Check Barbara's website. I pulled up the truth about Amy Scott on my phone, but instead of Barbara's carefully crafted lies, there was a single message. This domain has been seized by the FBI as part of an ongoing investigation into wire fraud, racketeering, and corruption. The news split screen to show multiple locations being raided simultaneously. Bradley's house, where the councilman was led out in handcuffs, still wearing his pajamas. City Hall with agents wheeling out filing cabinets and computer equipment. The HOA management company. Employees standing in the parking lot looking shocked. Even the real estate firm Barbara used for her recommended buyers was getting the federal treatment. The scope was staggering. This wasn't just about one corrupt HOA president anymore. Then Amy appeared on screen and my heart stopped. She stood at a federal podium in full dress uniform flanked by FBI officials and federal prosecutors. She looked exhausted but determined. Every inch the authority figure Barbara had tried to paint as corrupt. Good morning. I'm Chief Amy Scott, working in conjunction with the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. For the past 8 weeks, we've been investigating a criminal enterprise that used homeowners associations as a front for racketeering, extortion, and money laundering. She clicked a remote and an organizational chart appeared on the screen behind her. The connections made my head spin. Barbara wasn't just a rogue HOA president. She was part of a network that looked like a spider web of corruption. Barbara Garcia was not operating alone. She was part of a network that spans 6 HOAs across 3 counties. This network has stolen approximately $2.4 million from homeowners over the past 5 years. Reporters shouted questions, but Amy raised a hand for silence. The scheme worked like this. Corrupt HOA presidents would target specific homeowners with excessive fines. When families couldn't pay or fought back, they were forced to sell. Those sales went to predetermined buyers who kicked back 20% to the HOA presidents and their enablers in city government. My jaw dropped. 2.4 million, 6 HOAs. This was massive. To date, we have arrested 12 individuals, including 4 HOA presidents, 3 city officials, 2 real estate developers, and 3 property managers. More arrests are expected as we continue our investigation. What about Barbara Garcia specifically? A reporter called out. Amy's expression hardened, and for the first time, I saw the federal investigator she'd been all along. Mrs. Garcia's case is unique. She didn't just steal money. She weaponized an entire neighborhood's trust to cover up her role in a child's near death. She used HOA rules as a weapon to silence witnesses. She corrupted public officials, destroyed families, and when cornered, attempted to destroy an entire community with illegally obtained personal information. That makes her crimes particularly heinous. The news cut to footage of Barbara being led from her house in federal custody. No local jail this time. Federal marshals, federal charges, no bail. My phone rang. Helen. Larry, there are FBI agents at my door. They want to interview me about Barbara. Cooperate, I said, still trying to process what I was watching. Tell them everything. Throughout the morning, agents interviewed neighbors. Every fine, every threat, every forced sale was documented with federal precision. The FBI had even recovered Barbara's surveillance files. Years of illegally obtained personal information, credit reports, background checks, even private investigator reports. The violations of privacy were staggering. By noon, more bombshells dropped. The feds had tracked the money with forensic accounting that would make your head spin. Barbara hadn't just collected $480,000 in fines. She'd hidden another $300,000 in offshore accounts. Money stolen from families she'd destroyed, squirreled away for an escape she'd never make. Amy came home briefly for lunch, looking exhausted but energized. The kind of tired that comes from finally completing a mission you've been working on for months. 8 weeks of this? I asked, still trying to wrap my head around the scope. You've been running a federal investigation for 8 weeks. Longer, actually. The DOJ approached me in Denver. Barbara was already on their radar, but they needed someone inside. She grabbed a sandwich, eating mechanically. Moving here, becoming police chief. It was all part of the operation. So, our marriage was just cover. The words came out more bitter than I intended. She cupped my face with both hands, making me look at her. Our marriage was the only real thing in this whole mess. I couldn't tell you everything, but I never lied about us. Never. What happens now? I asked, though part of me wasn't sure I wanted to know. Now Barbara faces federal charges. 20 years minimum, probably life. The Andersons are filing a civil suit. The other HOAs are being dissolved. And she smiled. The first genuine smile I'd seen in days. Every penny stolen gets returned with interest. Her phone buzzed. I have to go. Press conference at 2. The Attorney General is flying in. The Attorney General? I couldn't believe how big this had gotten. This is big, Larry. Barbara accidentally exposed a nationwide problem. Corrupt HOAs are everywhere, and she just gave us the roadmap to take them all down. That afternoon, the Attorney General announced Operation Neighborhood Watch, a nationwide investigation into HOA corruption inspired by the Maplewood case. Barbara's case would be the template for prosecuting similar crimes across the country. Barbara's mugshot became the face of HOA corruption. News programs, documentaries, late-night comedy shows, everyone covered it. Social media exploded with hashtag Barbara the Monster trending nationally. HOA horror stories poured in from across the country, all inspired by Barbara's spectacular downfall. But the moment that broke the internet came during a live courthouse feed. Barbara, being led to federal custody, spotted a news camera and completely lost it. Property values. What about property values? She screamed, her voice cracking with desperation. You'll all see chaos. The neighborhood will fall into chaos. It became an instant meme. Within hours, there were remixes, auto-tuned versions, and t-shirts. What about property values? Became the catchphrase for every petty tyrant's downfall. Late-night comedians had a field day. Social media influencers created Barbara Garcia challenge videos, dramatically screaming about property values. That evening, the neighborhood held an impromptu celebration. No permits needed. The HOA was dead, and federal agents had better things to do than police a block party. People brought food, drinks, and years of suppressed joy. The atmosphere was electric, like we'd all been holding our breath for years and could finally exhale. To Amy, Helen raised a toast with her plastic cup of wine. Who saved us from the tyrant of the clipboard? To us, Amy corrected, raising her own cup. For finally standing up, for being brave enough to trust each other again. As the party continued, kids playing past approved hours and music exceeding acceptable levels, I found Amy standing apart, watching our neighbors laugh and connect. For the first time in years, they were talking to each other without fear, sharing stories without worrying about HOA retaliation. Regrets? I asked, wrapping my arm around her. None. Well, one, she leaned into me. What? I couldn't imagine what she could regret after such a complete victory. I really wanted to paint our mailbox purple just to see Barbara's face. She grinned at the thought. So, paint it purple? Who's going to stop you? I laughed at the simple beauty of that freedom. She laughed too, the sound mixing with the happy chaos around us. You know what? You're right. First thing tomorrow, the purplest purple I can find. And we stood there watching our neighborhood heal. Children playing games Barbara would have fined them for. Dogs off leashes running free. Music and laughter filling the air. Chaos just like Barbara predicted. Beautiful, wonderful human chaos. The kind of chaos that happens when people are free to be themselves. As the celebration continued, my phone rang. Unknown number, but Amy nodded for me to answer. Mr. Scott. The voice was cold, professional, but the kind of authority that made you stand up straighter. This is Assistant Director Smith from the FBI. We need to discuss your wife's real assignment, the one she hasn't told you about. Barbara Garcia was never the main target. She was just the key to something much bigger. How much do you really know about why you moved to Maplewood? Monday morning arrived with the kind of finality that makes you realize some stories don't have happy endings. They have just endings. Federal Courthouse downtown. The building loomed like a monument to justice, all marble and authority. Barbara Garcia was about to face judgment, not in a suburban HOA meeting where she held all the power, but before a federal judge who'd seen corruption in all its forms. She looked smaller in orange, aged a decade in days. The power suit was gone, replaced by federal custody attire that stripped away all pretense of authority. No clipboard to clutch, no rules to quote, no neighbors to terrorize. Just a broken woman who'd built an empire on guilt and fear, watching it all come crashing down. The defendant faces 93 federal counts, the prosecutor announced, his voice echoing in the courtroom, including racketeering, wire fraud, cyber terrorism, identity theft, and obstruction of justice. Barbara's lawyer, court-appointed now, since the feds had frozen every asset, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The public defender shuffled papers nervously, clearly overwhelmed by the scope of his client's crimes. "How does the defendant plead?" the judge asked, peering over his glasses at Barbara. "Not guilty," Barbara whispered, her voice barely audible. "Speak up, please." The judge's tone suggested he had already read the case file and wasn't impressed. "Not guilty," Barbara said louder, but the words rang hollow in the courtroom. The prosecutor laid out the case with methodical precision. The HOA scheme that had netted $480,000 in illegal fines, the Anderson incident and subsequent cover-up that had driven out 6 families, the systematic targeting of witnesses, the corruption of city officials, the cyber terrorism when cornered, another $300,000 hidden in offshore accounts ready for an escape that would never come. Your Honor, Mrs. Garcia didn't just steal money. She weaponized an entire community's trust. She turned neighbor against neighbor to hide her role in a child's near death. When her crimes were exposed, she attempted to destroy dozens of lives with illegally obtained personal information. This wasn't just corruption. This was a reign of terror disguised as suburban governance. When Barbara took the stand for allocution, she still couldn't accept responsibility. Even facing decades in federal prison, she clung to her twisted worldview. "I was protecting property values," she insisted, her voice taking on that familiar, self-righteous tone. "Maintaining standards if people had just followed the rules." "Mrs. Garcia," the judge interrupted, his patience clearly exhausted. "A child nearly died because you prioritized a garden hose citation over human life. You then spent 3 years destroying anyone who witnessed your callousness. You corrupted public officials, stole hundreds of thousands of dollars, and when caught, attempted to destroy an entire community. This wasn't about property values. This was about your pathological need for control. The rules matter," Barbara's voice cracked with desperation. "Without rules, there's chaos. Without compassion, there's cruelty," the judge replied coldly. "And you, Mrs. Garcia, have been exceptionally cruel." The sentence came down like a hammer. 25 years federal prison, no parole for 15, full restitution to all victims, every penny of the $780,000 she'd stolen, lifetime ban from any position of authority, no matter how minor. She'd never so much as run a bake sale again. As marshals prepared to lead her away, Barbara turned to the gallery where neighbors had gathered to witness her judgment. Her eyes were wild with the kind of desperation that comes from finally facing consequences. "You'll see," she screamed, her voice echoing off the marble walls. "Property values will crash. The neighborhood will fall apart. You'll beg." The doors closed on her words, cutting off her final prediction of chaos. But her words hung in the air like a curse or maybe a promise. Outside on the courthouse steps, Helen spoke for everyone. "She still doesn't understand. It was never about property values. It was about people. It was about community. It was about being able to live without fear of a knock on the door and a clipboard full of violations." The media swarmed, wanting reactions, but most neighbors just wanted to go home and start healing. The neighborhood did change after Barbara. Property values actually went up. Turns out people pay more to live where neighbors support instead of spy on each other. Who knew that freedom from tyranny was a selling point? The real estate agents started advertising Maplewood as the neighborhood that stood up to corruption and where neighbors are friends, not informants. The Andersons even moved back. Emma, now 13, walked with a slight limp, but walked proud. The community that had failed her once made sure she knew she was welcome. A fundraiser for her ongoing medical expenses raised $50,000 in a week. The neighborhood that Barbara had tried to divide came together stronger than ever. Every Halloween, the neighborhood went all out with decorations. No restrictions, no fines, no complaints about inflatable dragons or zombie displays. Someone always put up a sign, "Chaos welcome here." It became our unofficial motto, a badge of honor. The local news did a feature on it, calling Maplewood the neighborhood that chose freedom over fear. And every year, without fail, someone would joke, "But what about property values?" They'd all laugh. The kind of laugh that comes from shared trauma transformed into shared strength because they'd learned something Barbara never understood. A neighborhood's value isn't in its rules or uniformity. It's in its humanity, in its ability to support each other through hard times, in choosing compassion over compliance. The FBI investigation Amy had helped launch spread across the country. Dozens of corrupt HOAs were exposed. Hundreds of petty tyrants dethroned. Barbara Garcia became a cautionary tale told in real estate schools and community planning courses. Don't be a Barbara entered the lexicon as a warning against letting power corrupt. But the real victory wasn't in the arrests or the returned money. It was in the small moments. Kids drawing with sidewalk chalk without parents checking for violations. Gardens growing wild with personal expression. Mailboxes painted in whatever color brought joy. The freedom to be human without fear of fines. That night, as Amy and I prepared for bed, she sat on the edge of the mattress holding a sealed envelope. The FBI seal was prominently displayed. "The FBI gave me this when I closed the case," she said, turning it over in her hands. "They said to open it only after Barbara's sentencing." She broke the seal with trembling hands and read. I watched her face go pale, then confused, then shocked. Barbara has a daughter who has been writing to her every week in prison. She looked up at me with wide eyes. And she just applied to law school specializing in HOA law. 5 years. That's how long it took for Maplewood Estates to transform from a neighborhood ruled by fear into a community built on trust. I was planting our third garden gnome, a ridiculously cheerful frog that would have given Barbara an aneurysm, when the news alert popped up on my phone. Former HOA president released early from federal prison. The headline made my blood run cold, even though I'd known this day was coming. Amy found me staring at the screen, my hands still covered in potting soil. "I know," she said quietly, reading my expression. "I got the notification this morning. Good behavior, completed rehabilitation programs." She served 5 of the 8 years. 5 years, it seemed both too long and not long enough. "Should we be worried?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "No, she has lifetime restrictions. Can't serve on any boards, can't access financial systems, intensive probation." Amy smiled grimly, plus a restraining order keeping her 500 feet from any former victim. "That's basically the whole town," I pointed out. "Exactly." Amy's tone suggested this wasn't an accident. Barbara Garcia had made herself persona non grata in her own hometown. Maplewood Estates had transformed in those 5 years. The pristine uniformity Barbara had enforced was gone, replaced by something better, personality. Each house unique, gardens wild with personal expression. The Anderson house had a beautiful wheelchair ramp bordered by Emma's favorite flowers. And nobody counted the varieties or checked if they were on an approved list. "Block party planning meeting tonight." I reminded Amy. "You coming?" These monthly gatherings had replaced HOA meetings, but the vibe couldn't be more different. Wouldn't miss it.
Helen's bringing her famous potato salad. Helen had become our informal social coordinator. No president, no board, just a neighbor who liked bringing people together. The community center was packed that evening. Kids running around, dogs welcome, laughter instead of litigation. The same room where Barbara had held court now hosted potlucks and birthday parties. "Okay, everyone," Helen called out, her voice warm with genuine affection. "Halloween's coming up. Who wants to help with decorations? Hands shot up enthusiastically. The Andersons volunteered to organize trick-or-treating routes. David offered his garage for building the haunted house. Everyone had ideas and nobody worried about violations or fines. Any restrictions on decorations? A new resident asked nervously. They just moved in. Didn't know the history. The room burst into laughter, not mocking, but understanding. We'd all been there. Honey, Helen said kindly. The only rule is have fun, though maybe avoid actual hazards. Jim's animatronic zombie scared the mailman into early retirement last year. More laughter. Jim looked proud of his zombie, already planning this year's display. After the meeting, Amy and I walked home under streetlights decorated with whatever neighbors felt like hanging wind chimes, bird feeders, even a disco ball that caught the light and scattered rainbow dots across the sidewalk. Ever miss the uniformity? I asked jokingly. Gunno. This is what neighborhoods should be. Messy, human, alive. Amy squeezed my hand. This is what we fought for. A car drove slowly past us. Illinois plates, woman driver, moving cautiously like she was lost or looking for something. Amy tensed beside me, her cop instincts never fully off duty. The car stopped. The window rolled down. My heart nearly stopped. It was Barbara. 5 years had aged her 15. Gray hair where the highlighted bob used to be. Deep lines etched by guilt and prison time. The kind of tiredness that comes from carrying unbearable weight with no way to set it down. She looked at us, opened her mouth, then closed it. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. You're in violation of your restraining order, Amy said calmly. But I could feel the tension in her body. I know. I needed. Barbara's voice was barely a whisper. Nothing like the commanding shriek we remembered. I wanted to see it. The neighborhood before I leave town. Leave? I asked despite myself. My sister in California, she's giving me a job, a chance. Barbara's hands gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles. I wanted to apologize to everyone, but especially to the Andersons. Is Emma? She's in high school now. Doing well, Amy said carefully. That's good. Tears ran down Barbara's face, and for the first time, they seemed genuine. I killed that child. In my mind, I killed her. Every day in prison, I saw her face, the ambulance lights, her mother screaming. Amy stepped closer to the car. Barbara, I know what I became. How the guilt twisted me into something monstrous. All those rules, all that control. I was trying to prevent it from happening again, but I just caused more pain. Barbara's voice broke completely. I turned into the very thing I was trying to prevent. Someone who hurt children. All those families I drove out. All those lives I destroyed. Yes, Amy said simply. You did. There was no comfort in her voice, but no cruelty either. Just truth. I'm sorry. I know it means nothing. Change is nothing. But I'm sorry. Barbara wiped her eyes with a shaking hand. I'll go now. You'll never see me again. Barbara. Amy's voice was firm but not unkind. Get help. Real help. Not prison programs. Actual therapy. Deal with what happened that day. I will. She started the car. Take care of the neighborhood. It looks happy. She drove away slowly, carefully, like someone who had learned that rushing leads to tragedy. We never saw her again. Later, I told Amy that was unexpected. I was still processing seeing our former tormentor brought so low. Prison changes people sometimes. Maybe she finally faced what she'd been running from. Amy sounded thoughtful rather than vindictive. Think she meant it? I asked. Doesn't matter. The Andersons have moved on. The neighborhood has healed. What matters is we don't let fear rule us again. But I thought it did matter somehow. That even someone as far gone as Barbara could maybe find a way back to humanity. The next morning, I was watering our completely non-regulation wildflower garden when Emma Anderson jogged by. 16 now, confident, alive, the slight limp barely noticeable as she moved with athletic grace. Morning, Mr. Scott, she called out cheerfully. Morning, Emma. Training for track. Yeah, coach says I might make varsity. She waved and continued on, ponytail bouncing. I watched her go, thinking about second chances, about communities that choose connection over control, about the price of guilt and the power of facing truth. Barbara had let guilt transform her into a monster, but Emma had let survival transform her into something stronger. Our grass was 4 inches high. Our mailbox was purple. Amy had kept her promise and painted it the most obnoxious shade she could find. Our garden gnomes were gloriously tacky. The frog gnomes seemed to wink at me in the morning light. And our neighborhood was free. As I stood there with my watering can, my phone buzzed with a news alert. I almost ignored it, but the headline made my blood run cold. Federal judge orders retrial in Garcia case. New evidence suggests police entrapment. I looked up to call Amy, but she was already standing in the doorway holding her badge and gun. "I know," she said quietly. "Barbara's lawyer found something. Something about how we really got into that house. Larry, we might have to move again." And that's how Barbara got exactly what she deserved. Who would have thought a simple $90 fine would lead to a situation like this? The twist was so big, even the cops were left speechless. If you thought this story was crazy, wait until you see what happens next. There's more justice to be served, and we're just getting started. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the silent brave out and shows us you're enjoying these stories of karma and payback. Stay tuned because next time we'll have another incredible story to share with you. Trust me, you don't want to miss it.